Hey, good evening, Saints. I was just digging into the second Passover, with all these people getting dreams and visions and whatever about the Passover timing, especially this year, I guess. There's the second Passover that isn't talked about very much, and I'm curious on that one because, if Jesus, it, the Passover was defined as, the barley being in Abib, that being the first year, and then Passover happening with the barley and Abib, and Jesus being the first fruits of the barley harvest. Brings up that whole question about when would the church, experience that resurrection. And second Passover has kind of always been, in the back corner of my mind as a possibility because it sits 1 month after Passover, and yet it's before Pentecost. And as we've gone through all these different looks at the harvest cycles and everything and what does it represent, a couple of times we got into this, but um, Pentecost is interesting because the dispensations appear to have changed on Pentecost. Noah got out of the ark, and within a few days was Pentecost, and it doesn't say on which day, but after he had exited the ark and all, the Lord told him to offer up a sacrifice, and so he built an altar, and people speculate that, if he was within a day or so of Pentecost, it probably was Pentecost, and then as you roll forward, the law was given on Mount Sinai, and Pentecost or Shavuot, and of course the Holy Spirit was given to the first members of the church on Pentecost. And so Pentecost is interesting, but there's the trouble there that um, the way that wheat is harvested, it's got a harder outer shell, and so they have to run this device. Back in the day, it was called the tribulum over it to break out the outer shell from the wheat to get the hearts of the wheat so they can make their bread. And so, that I don't think the Lord leaves these details to chance. I think that was on purpose, possibly pointing to the fulfillment having been done, or potentially during the Shavuot or Pentecost celebration, 2 loaves with leaven are raised. And I suspect that maybe that has something to do with the resurrection that happens during the tribulation, because there's a clear separation again in the tribulation period. At the time of Jacob's trouble, the Jews are separate from the Gentiles again. And I'm speculating that maybe that's what's represented there. And so I'm digging into this a little bit because I noticed a little potential nugget with the second Passover. First, it happens during the barley harvesting time, which is neat because if Jesus was the first fruits of those risen from the dead, if he was the first fruits, when's the rest of the harvest come in? Well, second Passover would be a great timing for that. And then secondly, when we get into the second Passover, there's an interesting little omission in the definition of Passover that shows up in the second Passover. And so that's where we're going tonight, is just show you this little difference that sits there. So the Passover, Exodus 12:5, we'll start up here in verse 2. This month shall be the beginning of months for you. It should be the first month of the year to you. So he was resetting the calendar so that first month, I guess it's Nisan, right? It's when Passover. He's saying that's now your first month. Speak unto the congregation of Israel. In the 10th day of this month, they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male from the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or of the goats. This is really cool. If you watch my video I did on the sacrifices around the feast days, there's something cool going on there. And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. The whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it and eat in the evening. So I kind of pounced on that because, this is Passover is being given to the Israelites, right? And they shall take of the blood and strike it, the two side posts and the upper doorpost of the house, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roasted with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roasted with fire, its head and its legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until morning you shall burn with fire. All right, so you get the drift of what's going on. Let me just kind of cut that off there, because the observation was that this was given to the congregation of Israel, and it's repeated there again in Exodus 12:6. Congregation of Israel shall kill it and eat it. Now that made sense just prior to the Exodus, because it was the Egyptians that were going to receive the ultimate punishment of the firstborn being killed. But we're going to see something else here in a minute. So if I scroll down to Exodus 12:19, we're now talking about the unleavened bread portion of the celebration that comes after Passover. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. And so Passover, strangers weren't mentioned, and yet, the next celebration that's sort of tied with Passover, strangers or the children of Israel are mentioned. So there's a little interesting nugget. Now let's go to Numbers 9, where the second Passover is discussed. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of the Sinai in the first month of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at even ye shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, you shall keep it. And Moses spake to the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month, even in the wilderness of the Sinai, according to all that the Lord had commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled with the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said to him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering to the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month, at even they shall keep it, eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover they shall keep it. But the man that is clean and not in a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord, according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. Ye shall have one ordinance for both the stranger and for him that was born in the land. So I thought that was kind of curious there. So the first Passover, when it's defined by the Lord, it's pointed at the congregation of Israel, and no strangers are mentioned. Yet in that same set of commands that the Lord gave, when it came down to the description of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Lord makes reference that it also applies to strangers. Then when you move to Numbers 9, and this issue of, well, what if I'm defiled during the Passover? And the Lord makes this one exception here to have the second Passover. It's there that he describes the stranger being among you can participate in the Passover. So I just bring that up because, the Lord may be using the second Passover as something here for us Gentiles. I've kind of gone through all these feasts, and my heart's still fairly convicted that the feast fulfillment point mainly to the children of Israel. Even Pentecost, right, happened at the timing of, Shavuot for the Jews. It was the Jewish people that were attending to one of the mandatory feasts that they had to be there in the city of Jerusalem for, is when Pentecost happened. So I actually think these feasts are structured around the children of Israel. And, a lot of people really go for the Feast of Trumpets being the rapture of the church. But I think the Feast of Trumpets is, at the Lord's second coming. Matter of fact, I think it's very much pointed to in Matthew 24, where the description is they don't know the day or the hour. That's, Feast of Trumpets language down there in Matthew 24. And for me, the Gospel of Matthew is trying to tell the children of Israel that Jesus was their Messiah. And so I think the Feast of Trumpets timing is probably going to be at the Lord's return, second coming, sorry. So I'm going to leave you with that on the second Passover. The original definition omitted talking about the strangers just for the Passover, but it added the strangers in the description of the unleavened bread. And then when you get to the second Passover description, it mentions that strangers can participate not only in the second Passover, but it says that they can participate if they're willing to do it. And so maybe that's given us a little pointer that us strangers may be participating in a second Passover. What do you think, saints? I know that's, it's picking through details, but I think that's an interesting little detail that was given to us there in the second Passover. God bless you, saints, and you know what? We might be going home soon.